is Rachel, and today I'm bringing you the Golden Girls book tag. This was created by Josh over at Josh's Bookish Voyage, and I will link his channel and his tag video down below so that you can also do this if you would like. Let's just jump right into the questions. So the first question is Blanche, a book exploring sexuality and relationships. And I feel like I picked like the weirdest possible book for this one, but I just feel like I don't talk about this book ever, and I thought this might be a good place to bring it up and recommend it to you. And that is Jade Anonymous by Lori Feria Stellars, and I read this last year and it kind of just blew me away. It is so like atmospheric and it'll just like mess with your mind. Like, I had to take a minute after I finished this book and just like gather myself. Essentially, we have our main character who has been kidnapped from her place of employment by a man, and she does not know who this person is, and she's locked in this room, and she has no reference of where she is or what's around her, but she quickly discovers that there is another person that is locked in the room next to her, and she develops a relationship with this person, and oh my gosh, that's all I can say. I can't give you much more because it's a spoiler, but the relationships and the way things change and the emotions of this book were intense and wild. So, I mean, if you really want to look at like just some crazy relationships, here's one for you. I know that wasn't quite, I think, what the goal was, because Blanches are usually kind of light and fun. This one definitely is not. This is like the anti-Blanche, I feel like. But that is nonetheless my pick because I think you should give it a read. It is phenomenal and wild and will really make you think. Next up is Rose, and this is a book that reminds you of where you grew up. And for that, again, I feel like I picked a really weird one. I feel like I picked really odd books for all of these. So anyway, I picked Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. This is a middle grade spooky story that I highly recommend that you read. I thought this was fantastic. I thought this was very, very spooky for middle grade. But we follow our main character who has just stumbled upon this diary of a woman who used to live in the same town a very, very long time ago. And she's reading it throughout the day as her school takes a field trip to a local farm. And all of that setup really made me think of my hometown, because literally down the street from my high school, we have this little farm market, and it just made me think of that. I could totally see our school going on a field trip to this little farm market and having a day, you know? So absolutely read this book. It's spooky and it's fun. My field trips probably would not have ended this way, this spookily, but it made me think of my hometown nonetheless. Next up is Dorothy, and this is a book that made you feel smarter. And I decided to go with Brief Histories of Everyday Objects. This is written and drawn by Andy Warner. This is a graphic novel style nonfiction book that literally is just 2 or 3 pages of like how certain things come into existence, such as like Post-it notes and coffee shops, coffee filters, vacuum cleaners. It just explains the history of these everyday objects that we use all the time in a graphic novel format. I don't know why everybody doesn't talk about this book all the time. I think it's so fun to read. I'll just pick it up and reread it every once in a while because it's just so interesting to hear the history of some of these things that we see every single day. It seems like a lot of things generated during the Chicago World's Fair, which I find very fascinating. But yeah, definitely give this book a read if you think you might be interested in learning a little bit more about where the things come from that you use in your everyday life. Next up is Sophia, Picture It, a book featuring a life story. And for that, I went with Trevor Noah, Born a Crime. I think this is probably one of my favorite like biography memoirs that I've read. I don't tend to read a lot, so just the fact that that caught my eye, I think speaks volumes already. And we're following Trevor Noah as he's growing up in South Africa during apartheid. I mean, he literally, as the title says, was born a crime because his mother was black and his father was white. And it's just so, I don't even know the word. It's so chilling to read about somebody who is roughly my age, who has experienced this in their lifetime. That is so wild. So if you have not yet read it, I highly suggest you do. There is a younger adaptation as well, so keep that in mind, but definitely give the story a go because it's phenomenal, and I think it needs to be experienced. Next up is Stanley, a book you love to hate, and I went back and forth. I have several of these. Like, I feel like this is kind of like a guilty pleasure one. And for me, I'm going to say Blood and Chocolate by Annette Curtis Claus. I loved this book when I was younger. I thought it was fantastic. It was just the right amount of everything that I thought I needed in my life at that time. And yeah, it doesn't hold up. I have to say that. I reread it as an adult and it does not hold up, but I cannot like move on from it. Like, I can't let it go back into the universe. I have to keep my copy because there's still a place in my heart for this book, and I feel like that's the essence of Stanley. It no longer serves you, but you have a hard time letting it go. So that is definitely my Stanley pick. By the way, I don't think I told you what this is about. Essentially, this was like my Twilight before Twilight. It features a girl who is a werewolf, and she falls in love with a human boy, and her family tells her he will not accept you, he will not be able to handle this, and of course he does kind of flip out and things get kind of wild, but she does end up finding kind of her place and her own role in her werewolf family. I can't say I would recommend that you read this because I don't necessarily think that it holds up, but if you're looking for something that has like Twilight-y vibes, give it a try and see what you think. There is a movie version of this too that has a totally different ending, so if you read this and you don't like the ending, then you can try the movie. Next up is Cheesecake, a book that you read over and over and over, that you keep coming back to. And I have several of these as well, but the first one I thought of for this question is Stolen by Lucy Christopher. This is kind of reminding me of the first book that I suggested, just in the fact that we have a girl who is kidnapped and we have some weird relationships in the story. So keep that in mind. You might like those. If you like one, you might like the other. But I read this over and over. I recommend it all the time. It's just weird to think about what's happening in this book. It makes you think, and it's entertaining, and I don't know. It's all I can say is it's weird. I can't say again too much. I don't want to spoil things, but the way the relationships and things play out in this book, it always makes me feel odd because I think I want differently than what I know I should. Do you know what I mean? I want something to happen that I don't think should happen, which is always very odd. But I really enjoy this book. I read it all the time. Highly, highly recommend it. It's really, really interesting. Next up is Golden, a book exploring aging in the golden years. And I had a really hard time with this because I don't read books about older people. Like, I don't read any books about older people. I think I read one, and it was An Elderly Lady is Up to No Good, and I think the initial short story was really good, but I did not like the rest of the collection, so I didn't necessarily want to recommend it. But that's like really one of the only books I've read of featuring like older people. But I did have one that kind of came to mind for this question, and that is In an Absent Dream by Shauna McGuire. And this is following our main character, Lundy, who is part of this series of kind of magical children in this world. And we are kind of following her to her world in this one, where age really plays a big part. We're seeing the difference between her kind of growing up in these different worlds and the repercussions of her choices, of where she spends that time, and how valuable the years of your life really are. So I feel like this does kind of play into that, of like golden years and exploring aging, thinking about what it means to age. I think this book really does give you a little bit of that perspective. So I thought this was very, very, very interesting and a perfect pick for this prompt. And the last book pick is Thank You for Being a Friend, a book with a strong friend group. And you know, this was another one that I struggled with. I don't think I have a lot of books that have really strong friend groups. I guess what I'm finding is that I tend to read books of like isolated groups of people coming together, like found families, found friendships, things like that. It doesn't seem like there's just an established group of friends. I will give just a quick little shout out though. If you're looking for like a spooky one, you should try The Return It is very, very spooky, and I will link it down below because I don't have the book to show you. I cannot even remember the author's name now. It's Rachael something. I remember Rachael because that's my name, but I don't remember her last name. So I will put a picture up and I'll link it down below. But the one I'm going to pick for this topic is the Angus series. This first book is Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging. I think technically it's the Georgia Nicholson Diaries series, but there is a core group of friends in here that pretty much maintains through the whole 10-book series, and they do have their tiffs. I mean, they're teenage girls. There's drama all over the place and angst, but the group stays pretty core, and I really, really enjoyed that element of it, of seeing our main character Georgia with her friends. She has one best friend who she's kind of on again, off again with, as well as all the other characters. Like I said, I think the hormones play a huge part in their craziness and their willingness to accept each other, but they are very themselves when they're together, and I love that. They have a lot of inside jokes and a lot of fun together, so I thought that was perfect for this question, really in the heart of the Golden Girls spirit, and yeah, so that's my pick. And lastly, we are in the spirit of the Golden Girls supposed to tag a friend, and I would officially like to tag everybody who wants to participate in our Golden Girls Readathon, or whoever has participated in our Golden Girls Readathon. I think everybody should try this tag, as clearly we are interested in the Golden Girls. So you're officially tagged. Boom, you're it. And yeah, let's talk about some books in the comments. Have you read any of these that I picked? Do you want to read any of these that I picked? Do you think I should read something based on what I've said? Let's talk books down below. And thank you again to Josh for making this tag, and thanks for watching. I'll see you again in another video soon. Bye for now.